Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I am doing my March reading wrap up. Dare I say it, this may have been the month that I've read the most books ever in. And I'm so excited to talk about all the books that I've read this month because I actually had just like the best reading month. I don't know what it was. I think because I was traveling so much this month, I just got the opportunity that I don't usually get to read more books. Granted, a lot of them I did listen to as the audiobooks or I read them on my Kindle, but I just felt like I was flying through books this month and I read a total of 10 books this month. I read 5 fantasy, 1 general fiction, 1 YA, 1 like romance crime book, which will make more sense when I tell you what the book is, 1 normal romance, a small town romance, and a thriller. I think that's all of them. But I just had the best month. I read a lot of books that were on my TBR, which was great. I also read a lot of like new books and new releases that I really enjoyed. And I've also been really getting into the hardcover versions of books. Like I find that just the reading experience, it just feels a little bit elevated to read a hardcover. I don't know why, but I enjoy it a lot. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. And I thought I'd do something different this month because I read so many for me. I thought I would order them in the order of how much I liked them. You'll get my lowest rating books first, all the way up until my, dare I say, 5-star read, which I was very happy about and not at all surprised when I rated it 5 stars, which you'll understand when you see the book. Let's get into it. The first book I read for the month of March was actually a book club book. I read 2 book club books this month, which is a little bit wild to me actually. I don't know how that ended up happening, but it's The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This was a very interesting book because I kind of went into it without any prior knowledge of what this book was about. I still think about it, but I just don't think it was a book that was written for me. Like, I don't think I was the target audience of this book. How do I describe it? Okay, I'm just gonna tell you what it's about. It's about our main protagonist, whose name is Phoebe, and she arrives at a destination in Newport on Rhode Island. It's a hotel, essentially. So she arrives at this really nice hotel. She's got her bag packed, and when she arrives at this hotel, realizes that every other guest at the hotel are in a wedding party, because the wedding's happening that week. It's like a week-long wedding event and she didn't realize. So she gets mistaken for one of the wedding people and you find out very early on in the book, and I will say this is a bit of a trigger warning, but she's actually going there to unalive herself. She gets interrupted by the bride very early on. So this is not a spoiler at all, but she gets interrupted by the bride and the bride is of the opinion that this is my special day. You cannot ruin it by unaliving yourself in the hotel that the wedding is gonna be at. It's gonna ruin the whole day. You have to stay alive for my sake, if nothing else. It is very interesting. It is telling the complexities of life, how you can lose yourself in a marriage and come out of that on the other side. So I did enjoy it. I do really struggle with contemporary fiction. Sometimes I feel like I really just need a bit more plot, and if they don't dive deep enough into like the characters' innermost thoughts, then I just get a bit bored. I'm like, okay, I just don't think I got the depth that I wanted to out of it, and I think the characters were quite unlikable. I just don't think it was realistic how the characters kind of played out. So I gave this one 2.5 star, which I mean, that is average. That's straight down the middle. It's not a bad rating by any means, but it just very clearly was my least favorite book of the month. So the second book that I read this month was actually on my Kindle, and that was A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. And this is the first book in a series, and it basically follows a retelling of the story of Hades and Persephone. And I really got into this after reading The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen, and I read that last month. And I just really got into the whole God retelling stories. I don't know what it was, but I just had a bit of a moment with that. I did really enjoy this one. It is a very smutty, spicy book. So if you just want like a smutty book, this is a really good book for you. There were like little fantasy elements and you got to see like the different, the different elements of like Hades' story and Persephone's story in terms of like the underworld and the river Styx and all of the like the mythical elements that come along with like Greek mythology. So that was really interesting. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I did really enjoy it. It was super fast paced. I got through it very quickly. It was nothing, out of the ordinary. It wasn't reinventing the wheel, but I did have a really good reading experience as I was reading it. So yeah, I did really enjoy it. I think I will continue the series. I just have so many other books on my TBR, so it's really hard for me to commit to reading a book that I thought was fine when I have so many books that I know I'm gonna love on my TBR. So yeah, that's why I gave that one 3 stars, but I did enjoy it. Like if that's your kind of book, like if you liked Haunting Adeline or like Butcher and Blackbird and all of those kinds of books that are like, there's a plot, but it's mainly about spice, then you'll probably like this book. The next book that I rated was Killer Instinct. This one here is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It is the second book in the Naturals series. I believe there's 4 books in that series, and it's basically following a bunch of teenagers, very late teenagers, so like early adults, that have been collected by the CIA because they have natural abilities to profile cases. So they work on cold cases for the CIA, and they all have different abilities. So one of them's like a natural profiler, one of them is a natural lie detector. There's all these different abilities that these kids have, and they help the CIA to solve cases. So this one here was very interesting. Basically, the main protagonist, Cassie, she was helping a few of the other kids in this home that they live in where they solve these cases with an active case that was going on. And a general theme of these books is that they're meant to solve cold cases, but they somehow get twisted, and they end up just being involved in the active case that's going on at the time. And they're all just so interesting. They're such fast-paced reads. I think if you really like a very uncomplicated storyline with different elements that keep the book very interesting, like, for example, this one here flips between 2 different perspectives. So it flips between the perspective of Cassie, who is the main narrator in the book, and then it also flips between the perspective of the serial killer that they're trying to hunt, and what that serial killer, like inside the mind of that serial killer, what they're thinking at the time, which is super interesting because Cassie is a natural profiler, and the way that her superiors teach her how to hone that skill is by getting into the mind of the serial killer and speaking as though she is that person. So for example, if the serial killer is about to commit an act, she will speak about it in her head like, you have arrived at the house and you are finding the knife and you are going to find this person because you're feeling this way. And that's how she kind of works out and profiles the case. So that element was really interesting. I think it added an extra layer to the story, which made it really fun to follow along with as you're trying to work out who this serial killer is, what their intent is, who's going to be targeted next. So yeah, very fun story. So if you just want something a bit more entertaining, then this one is definitely really good. I'm excited to read the rest of them. I've heard that the last 2 books are like the best books in the series, and I've really enjoyed both this one and the first one so far. So we'll definitely continue to read those. I do have both of them on my physical TBR as well, so I'll definitely be getting to them soon. I rated this one 3.25. So I feel like that is getting to like the good ratings, and I feel like from this point onwards, I just loved everything else that I read. So yeah. Next we have Nightbane. So this one is by Alex Aster, and I rated this one 3.75. This is the second book in the Lightlark trilogy. So there's Lightlark, Nightbane, and Skyshade, and I'm currently reading Skyshade at the moment. And she's just released another, well, is in the process of releasing another book that has 2 perspectives of 2 different characters in this series, and that should be coming out soon as well. This world is so interesting to me. It's a fantasy series. It is YA, but I wouldn't say it's YA in the writing style. It's just YA in terms of the smut and spiciness level. So it's very low on the spice, which is kind of refreshing because sometimes I feel like the spice can take away from the story, and I feel like the story and the character development is the main essence of this series. Essentially, there is an island called Lightlark, and I'll talk about Lightlark the book in a moment because I also read that this month, and then I read the second one this one. And Lightlark is essentially an island where all of the rulers go every 100 years to try to break their region's curse, because there's 7 or so different regions. I can't remember how many. There's a few different regions, and each region has a specific curse that has been made after an event that happened at Lightlark many moons ago. So they all come to this island every 100 years to try to break that curse so that they can live happy lives. And some of the curses are things like they can't go out at nighttime, or another region might not be able to go out during the day. Another region has to live on human hearts to survive, and another one can't live past the age of 25. So they're quite significant curses, but alongside the curses, they also, each region has a different power. So the ones who can't go out during the night, for example, they also have the ability to forge curses. And then the ones that live until, so the ones that have to eat human hearts also have a natural ability with nature as well, and they're quite influential people as well. So every region has a different curse and a different power, and I don't want to give too much away with the plot, but there is a bit of a love triangle and it is very enjoyable to read about. And I would say if you're someone who likes fantasy books with a lot of twists and turns and like just the plotting is really important to you, I would definitely recommend this series because I've had so much fun reading it. It's just like kept me on the edge of my seat. I remember I did a readathon for Light Lark and I literally was just like in shock as I was reading the last 100 pages, and the whole book is like that. There's a lot of information in these books and you do have to be paying attention, but I feel like the way that she wraps up the plot of each of the books, it just leaves you wanting more. Like it is addicting to read. So yeah, very much enjoyed that one. 3.75. Then there is another book club book of the month. So if you don't know, I have a book club that I do once a month-ish, sometimes once every 3 months, depending on how busy we are, with a few of my girlfriends. And it is the funnest thing to read a book together and then come together and discuss what we all thought of the book. I don't know why, but like that is just like my idea of a great time. And we finally finished a book within the designated time frame that we've given ourselves, and I'm just shocked that we've all finished this within a month. Like that never happens. And I really enjoyed this one. I actually gave it 4 stars. It's Butcher and Blackbird by Brienne Weaver. Essentially it's about 2 serial killers who murder bad people. Like people who kind of deserve to die, I guess, in a way. And they find themselves in a little bit of a challenge where they have to try to find the serial killer of a bunch of murders that have happened, and whoever gets there first wins a point. So it's a bit of a game that they've been playing since they've met, and they slowly are building a relationship and finding out different dynamics of each other. And it's just everything you need a little silly romance to be, with a side of a very fun plot. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I feel like books like this are just what make reading actually fun. I feel like sometimes I get bogged down in really heavy character world building books, and sometimes I just don't enjoy them, and it's unfortunate because reading's meant to be fun. Like you're not meant to be reading, like it's not meant to feel like work, and this just felt like fun to me. So that's why I rated that one 4 stars. Very enjoyable. I'm definitely going to continue this series. I believe there's 3 books in this series so far, and you do get hints of other characters that are potentially going to be in the other books. So I feel like it's a bit of an interconnected standalone series, which are my favorite kinds of series. I love it when I can just pick up a book and I don't have too much information that I need to remember from the previous book, but there are little snippets of characters or information that kind of gets passed down through the series, and it just makes you feel, it's the lore of it all. I love books that give you that lore and you're there trying to like put the pieces together. I love it. The next book that I rated 4 stars is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, and this is a thriller with an unreliable narrator trope, and I really enjoy these books because I feel like they're just super fast paced, and you are, like, it's entertaining because you're just like trying to guess what's happening and like what's real, what's not real. I just find them so gripping and addicting to read. And I read this one in literally like 24 hours. Granted, we did do a really big driving trip where I was driving for like 8 hours straight, and I feel like I got through a lot of it because of that. But basically, all you need to know about this book is the prologue, and I'm going to read it to you because this is what sold me into reading this book. The prologue goes, "My name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things you should know about me. Number 1, I'm in a coma. Number 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. Number 3, sometimes I lie." Like, tell me more. That is so gripping. I'm like, I need to know what happens next. And the whole book was just like, it was just written so well. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. Like, it wasn't a 5-star read. I don't think thrillers have to be really, really good to be a 5-star read for me. I feel like 5 stars are really reserved for a lot of like literary fiction and fantasy books for me, but I did really enjoy this one, and I think I'm going to read more by this author because they're just so fast-paced. They're like, if you like Frida McFadden, but you want something that's just a little bit more thought out, like to me, Frida McFadden, and this is probably so rude to say, but anyway, Frida McFadden is basically the Colleen Hoover of thrillers, and then Alex Feeney is like a step up, if you will. I would say she's like the Taylor Jenkins Reid of thrillers. So just like a little bit better. So anyway, I love that one, 4 stars, and can't wait to read some of her other books. If you have any recommendations, let me know. Then I read a very anticipated release for me. Anytime Elsie Silver comes out with a new book, I will be buying it and I will be reading it immediately. And it was no different with this one. This is Wild Side by Elsie Silver. This is the third book in the Rose Hill series. So this is essentially an interconnected standalone series. Another one I know, with each book being about a single dad. A different single dad within this bowling team in this small town, and their romantic interest and how it kind of goes on from there. So this one here is following Reese and Tabitha, I want to say. Is it Tabitha? I'm sure it's Tabitha. What is her name? Tabitha. Reese and Tabitha. So they essentially find themselves in a forced proximity situation because they both become the guardian for Tabitha's nephew Milo, and it's a very interesting way how that's set up. I found it to be very believable. I guess it wasn't like forced proximity where it's like, oh, we have to work together. It was a situation that slowly unfolded as the book went on and you got more information about the characters. And I just find books with kids in them are actually so fun because there's like that different element of the kid being quite naive but also like giving you more perspective on what's actually going on, and it's just so good. I think the only thing that let me down with this book, I still rated it 4.25, so like I still gave it such a high rating, but the only thing that let me down a little bit with this book is that Reese is a professional wrestler. I know that's some people's cup of tea, but it's just unfortunately not mine. I really tried to get behind it. I even did a little bit of TikToking just to see like the fan edits and things like that for Reese in this book, and I just can't get behind a professional wrestler wearing a mask and playing this like character. Like I just can't do it. I didn't find it sexy. I didn't find it hot, but the storyline itself was actually really, really good. So I feel like it made up for it with the storyline, and I will continue reading this series. I also love that the spines actually all line up. So there's 3 books so far in this series, and it's a bit of a mountainscape on the spines. So when they're on your bookshelf, they just look absolutely gorgeous. The next book is Lightlark, and I feel like I've kind of touched on this one already, what it is about, but I actually gave this one, I gave it 4.25, which I feel like for a YA fantasy book is actually quite high for me. Like it definitely wasn't a 5-star read. There were some bits that I was a bit cringy about, but I feel like overall I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know what else there is to say. I feel like I've kind of told you what it's about, but basically the love triangle in this book is from Oro, who is the king of Lightlark, and he is a sunling, so he can't go out during the daylight. And then Grim, who is one of the rulers of the Nightshades. I don't want to give too much away because the twists and turns in this book are just incredible, but if you haven't read it yet and you've been on the fence, I definitely recommend reading it. I'm enjoying it so much so far, and I am so excited to read Skyshade. So we're getting close to the end, and I'm so excited to talk about these 2 books in particular because they changed my month. Like I am a different person now because I've read these books. And the first is this beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous girl. This is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. And Carissa Broadbent, if that name sounds familiar, she is the author of The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So that was her first duology. This one here is the first book in the second duology within the Crowns of Nyaxia series, of which The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King are a part of. So it kind of goes those 2 books, and then it's going to be this one and another book. And the reason why it's 2 separate duologies within the same series is because the first 2 books were about a couple, Rain and Aurea, whereas this series, this duology, is Mish and I can't remember his name. Mish and Asar, A-S-A-R. And this is in a slightly different kingdom, so the House of Shadow. So essentially within this world, there are 3 different vampire kingdoms. There's the House of Blood, the House of Shadow, and the House of something else. House of Night, of course. Sorry, the first duology takes place in the House of Night with the House of Night Kingdom, whereas this is the House of Shadow Kingdom, and Asar is the prince of the House of Night. So essentially, his brother was murdered in the original trilogy, and now he is like in line for the throne, and he goes on a mission with Mish to the 7 depths of hell to try to bring back one of the gods that was basically relegated to the lowest of low depths of hell, and that god is going to cause a lot of problems in the overworld. And Mish's role by her god is to actually secretly go with Asar and help to actually kill that god that has been banished to the underworld. So there's a lot of lies, deception, and relationship building in this one, and it's just written so poetically. I feel like that's just Carissa Broadbent's writing. She is such a good writer. Nothing ever feels clunky or too long or too short. She explains things in the perfect way, and it's just so enjoyable to read her story writing. I don't know what it is, but I haven't found another fantasy author that writes like her. It's almost like literary fiction, but in a fantasy form. So really love that one. And also, how beautiful is this special edition? I got this the other day, and I've just got to show you because that is stunning. This is the tale of how a chosen one falls. It's so pretty. So I gave this one 4.75. I don't know if I already said that, but it was so close to a 5-star read for me as well. Like, it was just the ending that slightly let me down, and I don't know, it just almost gave me 5-star feelings, but not quite. So that's why this one's sitting at 4.75, sorry. And the last book I read, and this is going to be no surprise to anybody, but this was clearly 5 stars. This is Sunrise on the Reaping. This was everything that Hamish's story needed to be. It was sad, heartbreaking, world building. The lore was there. There were so many interconnections between the story of President Snow in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then also in The Hunger Games with Katniss and her family and her upbringing, and how Hamish is portrayed in the books and the movies in that series. It's just, I cried, I laughed, I was absolutely broken by the end of this book, and I can't wait for it to be made into a movie. I almost want to read it again. And the characters as well that came into this book from the original series, I died. I literally died as I was reading it. So this was the best and most deserving 5-star that I think I've given a book in a long time. And I'm just so happy. And like, how are you meant to beat this? How am I meant to rate another book 5 stars when I know this is the level of a 5-star that I want to be reading? I want it to absolutely ruin me, and I want to be thinking about it for weeks on end. So they are all the books that I read in the month of March. I also DNF'd one book as well, but I didn't really count it in here, but that was Fairytale, and I really wanted to enjoy it. I really did. So if you've read it and you liked it, because I know this is a super polarizing book, then enjoy it. Like, that's yours to enjoy. I just didn't. I found the main character, because it is first person from the main character's internal monologue, there was just so many thoughts that were so naive and a bit dumb, and I was just not enjoying it at all. So I did DNF that one at about 20%. But I'm not mad about it, because it's also 770 pages, and I'm just not going to get that part of my life back. So I didn't want to commit more time if I already wasn't enjoying it at 20%. So yeah, they're all the books that I read in the month of March. If you guys have read them, let me know. And if you have any more recommendations, also let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys for my next video. Bye.